I might just yell till this works. So welcome to Building Bridges. Thank you everyone who's new, and thank you everyone who's been here before. So I really appreciate it. Today we have a really, something a little bit near and dear to my heart. For those who don't know me, it's probably a good thing. So we've probably chatted for 4 hours. So sorry about that. I have a grandmother with dementia we've been through that journey, not knowing what's going on, not knowing that it was dementia, all the way through to her now living in an aged care facility. So along that path, we went through the ups and downs of not knowing how to proceed. She was angry. We didn't know how to deal with it. As a family, it was quite tough. So this particular topic is quite a little close to the heart for this one. So we've obviously got the lovely Tatjana, who introduced herself, who will be doing a little bit of a presentation and a bit of a workshop for us. Just before I start, just a quick formal. Just see if this is working now. I don't have to yell. So the Building Bridges event is designed to support shared learning, connection, discussion across the community services sector. Obviously, we're going to be sharing some information. The information is naturally general in nature and should be considered in the context of your own circumstances. So obviously, take the information that you get and put it in the context. So obviously, we can't match all different scenarios together. So obviously, we're not providing any legal advice or clinical financial advice for our events. So sorry, just a quick disclaimer. But I might hand over to Howard, who will do some quick housekeeping.
Hello? Yep, perfect. So my role is usually about housekeeping rules. So number one, the exits of the bathroom is I'll go outside, turn left and turn right. And then the emergency exit, there's 2 fire doors there in case of emergency. The next bit is we will be recording the whole event. So if there's anyone that, and we record an event and put on YouTube and also put it on LinkedIn. If anyone who may not be comfortable on the camera, please let me know. Speak to me afterwards. So then I will mark down your name. Then when we do the editing, we will remove your face and everything from the final version when it got released out. Next time parking is fine. No, it's fine. Parking is, I think everyone parking is okay. So next time, if you still come for parking, there's a parking just across the road on Service New South Wales. There's so much more easier parking there. The next part is the food and the drink. So we got food and the drink. I think that's great. Everyone start to enjoy the food. And then we would like to say thank you for Lada's Kitchen, from Matt over there. Going to say hi to everyone. So thank you for the amazing food. So if people go on Instagram, like it, or talk to him, and that'll be awesome. Okay, and then I will be organize more drinks afterwards. Now, for my last question is, I want to know how many people in here is Allied Health. Can I ask? Okay, perfect. Okay, good, perfect. Okay, good. Just for my own interest. Now, because that we do have under Building Bridges, we do have another subgroup called Building Bridges Allied Health. Is mainly talking about all the NDIS related Allied Health issues and matters. So if you're interested in joining or find out more information, either speak to me or speak to Miro in the front. Then we both co-chair the group. So speak to us, and then we give you more information. So yeah, thank you. I'll pass on to Earl to talk about all the vendors.
Thanks. I'm Earl, one of the founders, and my role is just to announce our supporters at the back of the room, our exhibitors. So we're going to get each representative to speak for about 30 seconds to a minute to give everyone an idea of what they do, and then hopefully after the formalities, which will take about an hour of the panel, there'll be more networking and you'll have a chance to speak to them. So the first one, I'll start with Muriel from SAR. She's right in front of me.
Thanks, Earl. Hi, everyone. I'm Muriel from SSIO, the Sri Sathya Sai International Organisation. We are a charity-based, non-denominational organisation, and we are founded on the 5 human values: truth, love, peace, right conduct, and non-violence. We do a bunch of social services, so things like providing meals to the homeless in Parramatta on a Monday night, and blankets to flood-impacted victims in Lismore. And in between all of that, we do a whole bunch more, so come to the back and find out ways in which we get involved. Today we are here to represent the school. We also run a school in Tweed Heads, so we have a primary and secondary campus. It is a private school that is run based on member sponsorship for the poor and underprivileged children in the community. The aim of the school is to provide academic excellence integrated with human values. Thank you. Please come and see us at the back.
you. Thanks, Meryl. So Megan from Palliative Care New South Wales. Hello.
Hi everyone, my name's Megan. I'm the Deputy CEO at Palliative Care New South Wales, and we're the peak body for palliative care in the state. So our job is to advocate for equitable access to palliative care for everybody. It shouldn't matter what your postcode is, it shouldn't matter how much money you have, everyone is entitled to palliative care. The other thing I really encourage you to learn more about is that it's not just end-of-life care, it's an approach to care that starts much earlier. It's everyone's business, it's everyone's job. We encourage people to think about what matters most to them, their advanced care plan and directive. So please come and have a conversation with me. Happy to chat more about some of the education and support we offer. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. Kelly from New South Wales Trustee and Guardian.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly from New South Wales Trustee and Guardian. My role is in community engagement and partnerships. And at New South Wales Trustee and Guardian, we promote the dignity, rights, choices of people within New South Wales, and in particular people that may have a decision-making disability that need that extra support with their decision-making, and also the importance of, which ties in with what Megan was saying about our planning ahead documents and making sure that all of us know what our decisions are about our own lives, and we get to make our own choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita from New South Wales Ageing and Disability Commission.
I'm Anita from the Ageing and Disability Commission, and our role is to work with older people and adults with disability who are subject of abuse, neglect and exploitation, and this is in the context of family members or loved ones. So when there is a relationship of trust, we are a bit different than other agencies because we focus on abuse, neglect and exploitation in a very close kind of context. We also work with the government and provide policy and systemic issues advice around many different things such as retirement villages, supported decision making, elder abuse, so many different things as well. We also administer the official visitor team, which means that there are people appointed to visit supported living places and boarding houses to ensure that people are not subject to abuse, neglect and exploitation. We are a unique agency from a perspective of working with a will and preference, which means if at any point the person feels that something doesn't have to be escalated further, we uphold their rights. Of course, not in the context of a severe abuse and neglect like a domestic violence, where we have a duty of care to report, and we have our primary role is to report to the helpline, and anyone can do so, and it can be anonymous. It's not necessary for you to share details, but we'll encourage everyone to have at least a conversation with us if they're concerned about anyone in their community, even their loved ones. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. And Alexis from Ignitability. I hadn't heard about Ignitability until a few weeks ago, but from what we've heard, very excited. So
hello. Ignitability is about 7 years old, but I'm working on the community engagement side. We support people, anyone living with a disability, their families or their carers who would like to know more about self-employment, getting a bit of help with starting their own business. We do not provide funds, but we do really one-on-one facilitate the support in each step of what it will take for an individual to start a business. So we do run a workshop, which is a very high level, which is just anyone who might want to explore self-employment. But if anybody does have an idea, you'd be very welcome to go to the website, ignite@ssi.com, and just look at some of the businesses that we've started over the years. It's just a portion of them. But no idea is too small or goal is too small. If it's legal and it's ethical, we're very able to provide that support either in person or remotely. Oh, also we're free. We're not related to NDIS in any way.
I have to say that you're not for profit.
Yeah. And we're also, we're not an accredited activity. We are support for individuals who want to know more about self-employment. Yeah.
Thanks, Alexis. And just lastly, you'll see that slide there. It'll probably flick away in a second. But our next event next month is at a bigger venue. and we're pretty excited. We're introducing some real cutting edge tech that is definitely going to make a difference for people. So last Thursday of the month, I think it's the 25th. So put that one in your diary. And we've also have a product launch on that day. So we'll start to do some sneak peeks before that event, but we're excited about that one. Thank you.
Now over to why we're all here. I'll hand over to Tatjana to introduce herself.
Kyle. Now, I don't know if I presented, I think probably about 12 months ago at one of these functions, and it has grown significantly. But what I'm here today to discuss, and if there are questions as I'm going through, please just pop up your hand and ask the question. I want people to be able to walk away with information that they can use. So what will happen today is I'll talk for about 20 odd minutes. We're going to have some great volunteers that have nominated themselves to participate in a role play where I will get the group to observe, and then we'll have a bit of a Q&A after that. So my name, as has been said, is Tatjana. I am a psychologist. I run and own JK Corporate Resourcing, and what we do is we work within the NDIS. We work as a workplace rehab provider, and we do some treatment work alongside all of that. So today what I'll be discussing is what if behaviour is communicating an unmet need?
Sorry, I just have a little quick announcement if that's okay. Does anyone drive a car? Is a Defender? The flashlight is flashy, just in case you park downstairs, just because the management uses drugs. Okay. The number plate finish at 12X. So is your car? So come down and fix your car.
It's not a lucky door prize. 128, 128.
Okay, so I'm not sure how my slides are being moved, but if I could get someone to move to the next slide. Oh, sorry. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today, can everyone hear me? I can't hear. Okay, great. Is dementia and cognitive impairment, specifically as the two areas when we're looking at behaviour or behaviours of concern. Where this has come from is, a couple of years ago, we were given a grant from WorkCover Queensland because what they'd seen is a massive increase of occupational violence in the aged care sector, which we now know is happening across aged care, health and disability. And they needed to see if we could bring up or develop a new product that could help reduce that scenario. So this is what we did. So for many people, living with dementia, cognitive impairment, psychosocial disability, trauma histories or dual diagnosis presentations, distress is often communicated by their behaviour. So this is people that you will see day in, day out that may not be able to use their words, but their actions are what you're having to respond to in your daily work. So the question does become, are we simply managing behaviour or are we trying to understand what the person is experiencing? And it sounds really simple, but what we found from a lot of research is that we tend to act on or provide care to our participants or clients. We're not engaging in a two-way relationship. We have come a long way, but we weren't initially when this was brought up. Next slide. So we developed what we call the Resident Ambassador Program. So this was a program, and I'll talk about it briefly today, but it usually is either a week-long training program. Today in 20 minutes, I'm going to discuss it along with a few other things. So bear in mind, this is just very brief. It is a program that we developed where we brought in a number of people that were working in this particular aged care facility as the pilot project, and we trained them up in how to observe behaviours. Because what we found was that there'd be a number of participants all behaving similarly, but the reasons were very different, and we weren't going through and working out, well, why is that? And so what we then were also doing is helping to protect the staff. So it's not just about clients or participants, it's about the staff, because if we don't have staff that can do the work, you've got no support for your clients. So behaviour management and identification of unmet needs, which was the underlying thing that we looked at for this program, was to reduce incidents of violence and aggression. So what is in the orange box that's probably really hard to read is it was an innovative approach. We had not seen it anywhere, and we were the first of its kind across Australia. So the findings were, this is just to give you the heads up of why this worked, and then we will go through and explain in a little bit more detail. There was better management of escalating behaviours, because with all behaviours, if you're watching an individual, you will start to see them escalating way before you see that behaviour coming through, which is typically aggressive or violent.
We did see that there was a 100% reduction in escalating behaviours once we had these ambassadors brought into the workplace. And what they did is they were working alongside your carers. So whether it was nursing staff or just support workers, whoever was providing care had the support of an additional person, and we named that person an ambassador. We did see a 43.6% reduction in client violence and aggression. We also saw an increase of staff morale and a sense of support from the organisation. Most beneficial during peak periods. And what we meant by that is what we saw is behaviours of concern we start to see, and you would know this, whenever you're providing cares or needing meals, or what you're doing is you're trying to get that person to either have their showers or change or have a meal, whatever it might be, and they may not be wanting to do it at that particular time. And our return on investment was 0 work health and safety incidents, reduced workloads, and increased role control. And what I mean by that is because there was less behaviours that the staff had to address, they ended up with more time to actually do the good stuff, as they said. So working with those clients or participants, doing things that were positive rather than trying to just manage behaviour that was not something that they could or wanted to have in that residential care or in the home or wherever it might be. Next. Okay, so what we did differently, we had, there is a multitude of, dual diagnoses. So what I mean by that is looking at 2 different disorders or conditions that a person may have. We only looked at a handful because, again, this started off as a pilot, and then in order to try and contain it, this is how we start the program. But if we are going out to organisations, we will get actual information about your participants or about your clients and then bring that into the training. But this is basically looking at, we looked at depression and dementia. We looked at dementia and anxiety, dementia and bipolar, dementia and schizophrenia, and dementia and psychosis. That's just a handful. The reason we did that is if you looked at the condition on the right-hand side, all mental health conditions, the reason people behaved a certain way varied. And if we address those behaviours according to what their diagnosis is, you've got a much better outcome. So we did look at other diagnoses such as acquired brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, cognitive impairment, and the effects of alcohol and drug and medication use, and serious physical health conditions. Because again, the reason for behaviours varies dramatically based on what is going on for that person. And some of the interesting things were, and again, you probably are aware, you need to have a story. You need to know your client's background. And a number of years ago, it wasn't being done well from a behavioural point of view. And when we started looking at the behavioural story of all the different participants, because this was an aged care pilot, there were people that were go-go, like real life go-go girls. There were people that had been doing some sort of, they had a lot of fun in their youth. And so there was a lot of illicit drug use back in the 50s and 60s. There was a lot of activities that the staff that were currently looking after them weren't aware of. And so when they went back and got those stories and that history, they could then understand what was going on for that individual, why there was a lot of frustration happening perhaps, and also why some of the symptoms. So again, basic stuff, but wasn't being done. Next. So dual diagnosis, there's no single definitive test for dementia or cognitive impairment. There's usually a whole host of reasons why this stuff happens. So whilst we don't have one test to go bang, yep, you've got dementia and that's what it is, we all know that dementia is a whole range of different dementias. Same goes for cognitive impairment. So it's just a reminder. Next. Okay. So this is just looking at dementia initially. And again, most of you will know this if you are working with people in the, whether you're a carer or a support worker or a nurse or an allied health professional, you start to see people going through a number of different things, such as memory starts to fade, perception, reasoning, thinking, judgment, language, all of that starts to go. And what we've sometimes forgotten, a bit of what Emmanuel alluded to, is the family doesn't always know what's going on because it's so subtle to begin with. So there's usually a lot of frustration on behalf of the person that is starting to forget things, but there's also a lot of frustration from family, and it's only when it progresses and then there's some sort of formal diagnosis that the family goes, oh, that explains it. So again, we're looking at, it's one of the most common conditions we do see. It is also important to understand dementia on its own, as well as what else is that individual potentially going through, or do they have other diagnoses, and how do the two or more, sometimes people have got a number of conditions, how do they impact behaviour? That's the key thing in terms of, if I can say one thing today, is when you go back and you do have clients that you are thinking of that are either exhibiting a lot of frustration or aggression, being able to tease out what are their diagnoses, or ask the staff that are able to give you that information, and then look at what is the behaviour for each one and how are they all interacting with one another. Because when you go back to try and address this behaviour, you need to be addressing it across 2 or 3 different disorders so that you know how to best deal with that individual. And also looking at environmental conditions. One of the other things is ruling out any of the physical stuff. You'd be surprised that still happens to this day, that people will say, Mary's got all these issues, and they forgot to do some, testing, and Mary's got some major physical issues that are causing her a lot of pain, and that's why she is the way she is. Next. So why is that important? I've pretty much gone over this. It is really key to understanding what is happening for that individual. You do need to look at all the conditions. And sometimes I've heard carers or support workers say, but that's not something I need to know. It's like, well, actually it is, because when the individual's having a good day and everything's going great, that's not a problem. It's when they're escalating due to frustration, pain, hurt, whatever it might be, you need to know how to address it according to their, their mental health and or cognitive conditions. Next. Okay, so this, and again, I don't know if you can see it clearly, this is a table what we've put together. So sometimes when you're seeing people with, say, extreme sadness, that sadness might be due to, say, feelings of hopelessness, disinterest in people, and previously they had enjoyed the company of people, irritability, anxiety about change, feelings of suspicion or paranoia, sleep disturbances and agitation. And then what we might see in terms of someone with increased aggression, and again, we may or may not know why that aggression is existing, is we see them pacing, and we see them sometimes becoming more immobile. Delusions may present themselves or increase, hallucinations, verbal or physical abuse. And this is either to themselves, other people, and we've seen it client to client, we've seen it client to worker, and sometimes we've seen family member to family member in residentials go and have a punch on because they're responding to what their loved one has said to them. And so this does cut right across. And sometimes we'll see refusal to cooperate and restlessness. So the behaviours may look the same, but the reasons may be different. Next. No, you're right. Have people seen some of this stuff in their clients or the people that they work with? Any of it a surprise? Yeah, I've seen some nodding heads. Okay, great. Who's heard of the unmet needs model? I know one person. That's because you mentioned it earlier. Oh, yep. Those that have heard me speak before, you're exempt. But other than that, there's maybe only 2 or 3. This is a great model when you are working with people who cannot always use their words to express what they're thinking and feeling. So whether it's kids, whether it's adolescents, whether it's adults, whether it's people with major disorders, this is a great model to think about. So what this model does is it looks at, does the person have an unmet need? Is this why we are seeing that particular behaviour? So again, not sure how clear it is back there, but your unmet need is here in the middle. And so what you might be looking at is behaviour is their only form. Okay, behaviour is their only form of expressing what is going on. If they are panicked, if they are upset, if they are scared, you might see the same behaviour. But if you respond thinking that they're just being difficult, but in reality they're being scared, what will that do to that individual? Happy to hear any. Yep. What else? Yep. Why? Yep. Any other comments? Yes. Yep. And if they're working with someone, we all know if we work with particular people, we get to know them a lot better. And so then you start to pick up on these things. But if you're going in and meeting with them and you don't know them well enough, this is where it's really important that organisations provide this information that's easily to access to people coming in to care for people. Who knows themselves? If I get, if I'm trying to say something and someone can't understand what I'm saying because, I don't know, say there's language issues, you do get frustrated at some point and you might show some aggression or, frustration that looks like it's aggression, but in reality, all it is frustration. So thinking about your clients. Also, sometimes the behaviour is a means of fulfilling their needs. So thinking about someone that's really, really lonely is maybe sitting in a room on their own, day in, day out, don't have family coming to see them. And the only thing that they know will get a response is to behave a certain way. What then happens when they get a response, positive or negative? Yep. That's right. And so if you get, that's the only form of communication you're getting during that day, what are you going to do? Over and over. And so who has seen that, or show of hands, has anyone seen that in their own clients? Yeah. And how do you break that cycle? Yep.
I put around in a pain and then up.
Yep. How do you know what the replacement behaviour is? Yes. And that's part. Yeah. No, you what?
I was gonna say, the training like behavior. It's also about addressing what is causing the original behavior. So to have, I'm just saying, to have the unmet need there is figuring out what that is, and then being able to provide that to them without reinforcing that behavior. So still providing it, but saying that your need can be met without this happening.
That's right. Yep. And so if there's loneliness, and we'll get to this on one of the other slides, is the need is to give them some attention. So if we could remove that negative behaviour, then we need to make sure that it's being replaced by something that still gives them what, fills their bucket, I guess. But this is also important where if you're in an organisation, you're doing intake and you're taking all the demographics down and all of that important stuff, it's really also important to make sure you get that story. And that includes, what do they like? What are their interests? What do they dislike? We've seen many a time where we've had people that have been through certain wars and they respond really poorly to certain cultures. The organisation doesn't even think of that, and then they go, oh, they're really aggressive when so-and-so's on. Basic stuff like that. Next. So, unmet needs model, just quickly, if you look at the unmet need being discomfort, which is the most common one, you might start to see agitation. Loneliness, agitation. Boredom and sensory deprivation, you might start to see physical non-aggression. So they may be doing things that are not overtly aggressive, but they're still, it's the start of the process. Anxiety, you might just see verbal aggression. And we will highlight this in the role play shortly. Next. Okay, so some of the differences, there are many different types of dementia, which each with their own unique symptoms. Frontotemporal dementia, I have trouble with that one, is more closely related to the symptoms and presentation of schizophrenia in the early stages, while Alzheimer's more typically attacks short-term memory. People with dementia and cognitive impairment tend to develop also other health problems, such as pneumonia and frequent infections. So again, really important to look at what's going on for them. Next. Some of the things to consider is effects of different types of medication. So benzos and/or other medication, they have long-term impact on people's ability or cognitive abilities. Effects of alcohol and/or other drugs, and that could be through youth. Someone may have been getting increasingly drunk day in, day out, and there is some brain damage as a result of it. But they, in their later years, presented someone with dementia, but no one's bothered to look at some of the other stuff that's going on. Earlier lifestyle choices, additional diagnoses and health conditions, and effects of trauma. That is another big thing that we need to look at. I'll quickly, before I'm meeting into your networking time. One example was there was a particular participant. She was an older lady, and they'd had immense trouble showering her. She used to scream black and blue. And after we did this program, they actually went back to find out had she had any trauma in her life. Simple thing, and she had some horrendous trauma. And so when we had carers, and it was males and females, they were basically trying to tug at her clothing, rip it off. You must have a shower now. You must. No control over when. So we changed it, and so gave the carers some options of what they could say to make her feel like she's got some control over when she showers, what other things could be put in place. And then they start to see a decrease where she did start to cooperate. But that was a really simple example of where we're needing to look at behaviours, the reasons for them, and then go, okay, how do we change how we address and work with that person? Any questions at this stage? No? Okay, our volunteers, great actors, come on up. I will introduce what we're doing. Just,
Do you need this one's
oh, yeah.
age doing?
Oh, okay. I will give you an overview of what we're doing here. The aim is to show a bit of what we were discussing, and then we're going to talk about it. So this is actually based on a real life example that we have. It was from far north Queensland, regional Queensland. So it is a real person it's based on. All the names obviously are changed. But what we're going to do is we're going to act out a scenario which is relevant, but it's looking at the importance of the worker and their health, as well as the client and their health, and then the other staff that are involved. So I'll start the scenario. Jane had just parked her car for a regular afternoon shift. This is Jane in her pretend car. Before getting out of her car, she takes a deep breath. She's mentally preparing herself to deal with Jack. Jack is in his 80s. He's been, this is Jack. Jack looks awesome for his age. Jack has been in care for more than a decade and made a habit of making inappropriate comments to staff, like Jane. Jane's like a really young 21-year-old, freshly out of uni. Yeah, grad. Jane also looks awesome for 21. Jane gets out of her car and heads for the building. This is Jack. Hey, babe, you're looking good today. Come to my room. Jane walks past him with her head down, already counting the number of hours until her break. Jane pushes back her tears. That sick feeling in her stomach returns, and she wonders, how long will I need to do and deal with this? That's the scenario. Do you need a mic, or do you want to just...
Yep. We got plenty.
Just to get through the shift maybe today would be so bad.
Hey, babe, you're looking great.
Morning, Jack. Morning, Jack.
Don't ignore me, sweetheart. You girls are all the same.
Stop. Stop.
Jack, I was actually just looking for you. Can you help me with something real quick? I heard your favorite music was playing outside.
Music?
That's right.
Did you say music?
Absolutely.
Jane, are you okay? Let's take 5 minutes. You shouldn't have to carry this alone. We need to review the strategies for managing Jack's behavior consistently.
He's been worse lately in the afternoons. He seems more unsettled after lunch. Maybe we need to review the triggers.
Dad, and I obviously haven't not aged well. Dad was always very social and flirtatious. But since the dementia progressed, his filters have lessened. He gets much more anxious when his routines change.
Thanks, Phil. Do you have a seat? I should have brought lollies to say thank you. Okay, so that's just a really quick scenario of what ended up happening. So the ambassador is, as I said, the behavioural specialist. So that person is the person whose job is to watch good behaviours amongst all the other different, clients or residents that might be in that particular facility. So when you think about Jack, what were some of his unmet needs? Anyone? Yep. Sorry? He liked human connection? Yes. Next, the person at the back up there.
Meaningful engagement.
Yep. Anything else? Yep.
Love and affection of a female counterpart.
Yes. Yep. He didn't have any family visiting. And so what ended up happening when we dug deeper, he was not a very nice man in his younger years. But that's how he was. He was an old man sitting in a residential, lonely, but still had needs. So irrespective of what happened, that explained why the family wasn't visiting, but you've still got that person that you're needing to support. So he was craving affection. The other thing behind all of that is he refused to go out into the communal areas. He refused to do anything with all the other residents. Why might that be?
Maybe younger women that he found attractive.
Yeah. What else?
Again, it contributes into the meaningful engagement where he didn't think he could talk to other people about what he was wanting to. Maybe they didn't share his interests. Maybe he didn't think that the people in the communal area had anything to add, or like I said, like he didn't think he could talk to them about what he wanted to. And maybe going back to dementia, he was thinking he was much younger and maybe they were older than he is.
Possibly. Wasn't the case in this one, but possibly could be.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. Does someone else have their hand up? Yep.
One thing I'm thinking is he's unsettled by the routine changing. If there was going to with dementia, then the common spaces would be very, with variables. That he was not like, he would probably feel more triggered. So he wanted to stay in a space that for him felt predictable.
Yes. The other thing was, and this came out across, and we've done this at a number of different places, a lot of the time they don't think anyone cares because you're one of many. And this is where it's really hard, because when you're working as a carer or a support worker, you've got a whole list of things you've got to get done, or a nurse, or whatever it is that your role is. And there's often not a lot of time. And so you're going, okay, I've got to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Make sure I don't forget this, make sure I don't forget that. So you're trying to get everything done. And then that individual's thinking, I'm just a whatever. No one really cares. So that was one of the big drivers for Jack. Okay. What impact did his behaviour have on Jane? Stress? Yeah. Yeah. Who's been a Jane? We'll take male and female Janes. Yeah. And if you've worked with people for a long time and you've never been in Jane's position, either you're really lucky or you've not noticed. Because when you're working with people, they are always going to have some level of frustration at some point in time. We all do. It's how we respond to that. So if you're Jane and you're going to work every day and you're feeling like that, what will happen eventually? And what happens when you burn out? You leave? Yep. Those that own organisations, what happens then? Yep.
You would also get the quality of care that you can physically provide would naturally not be as high as when
you got nothing left. Who knows that when they do get exhausted, and if you work Mondays through to Friday, by Friday night, who feels like picking up the phone and talking to people, even in your social life? Who feels like going out to socialise and talk if they've been talking all week? Some may still, but you're drained. But it's also, and I don't have time to talk about this today, but it is an actual, for organisations and people that are responsible for staff, it's a legal requirement that you're across this and that you're across the psychological safety of people. So years gone by, things that used to happen, I know when I first started working in mental health, my induction was make sure your back's never to the door, make sure there's no projectiles, and make sure you can run. That was my induction, literally working with adolescents in the western suburbs. We've come a long way since then, but we're still having a lot of injuries. So how do we balance compassion for residents with staff psychological safety? And then one more and then we're finished.
I feel like when staff do bring it up, provide a bummer for the staff, but let's say, so my experience has been that when I was really burnt out and it turned into trauma from the person I was caring for. And I think what I really needed at that time was for my management to really listen and replace me for even temporarily to give me like a breathing space to come back to that and then care for my participant in a way that I kind of feel safe, and the burnout has kind of pacified in a sense. But it turned out to be really bad to a point I just left. He used to sing a song, and if I hear that song again, I'm just PTSD.
But that does stay with us. I still have, well, not similarly, I had a young person that he gave me a tape back in the day when we still had tapes of a particular song, and we're going back 25 plus years, and every time I hear that, I still think of that client. But mine wasn't traumatic. Mine was just a reminder. But the other thing is the same as if we're working in a physical environment. Say the old days where we had people in factories getting RSI and repetitive strain injuries. This is the same thing. If you're exposed to the same person all the time and you're singing out, yes, your employers do need to do something and not just swap you out, but you as well need to start getting some sort of support.
I think also like training the staff to better support that client and understand what might trigger them so that they can avoid those things. And if a trigger is a particular person, maybe finding creative ways to maybe have that person not be in the same room with that client or things like that to just avoid escalations happening that might lead to staff burnout.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, we call it a story. Different places call it different things. Getting to know that person, that individual story is critical for care, like proper care. And so sometimes what we find is, if they do, like Jack loved music and motorbikes, they start to put pictures of, motorbikes and different bands that he loved. And as soon as he started to escalate, they could talk about something on a wall. And that was a really easy thing to do. So whatever works for your particular people and where you work, that's key. Yep.
It's not just about Jack or just about the carer. There was everyone else involved, and I think what I'm seeing from that it's a community problem, or it's not just we have Jack and he's got a problem. No, we've got a situation or a story that we need to collaborate, and maybe it means that she works in a different area where she doesn't actually walk past Jack's room every day.
What ended up happening is because of their different way of approaching Jack and Jack's behaviour changing, she did work with him. But what all this also is underlined by is Safe Work Australia has got psychology inspectors coming out to workplaces. They don't look at the individual, they look at your system. And this is a system. And I think that's what we need to be looking at, and that's what we're seeing more and more. And so if something goes wrong in a workplace, that's what's being looked at is the system, not the worker or the individual is the problem. What's this? 100%. Yep. 100%. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep.
Tatjana, just that last point you mentioned. So systems. So let's say you're a community provider. So your staff are in the field. You're not a still provider. So those systems really boil down to in your office, your policies, because they're not really going to be able to go out to your participants. Is that what you're?
That's right. And so what we have actually rolled this out to a provider, and they were going out and doing the home assessments for. They were NDIS clients, so they did range in age, but in this particular region, they were predominantly the aged care participants. And so what they did is they also, yes, as you say, policies, procedures. Good thing is to do a gap analysis and say, worst days possible, what could go wrong? Because on your good days, that's not an issue. So these people were going into people's homes. It's, environments that you don't know what you're walking into. And there are people walking into someone that may have been, hurt, deceased, fallen days ago.
And maybe mandated courses as well.
Yeah.
Some training as well.
Yeah. So you can only mitigate or control risk to a certain level. But as an organisation, you do need to show that we're doing everything possible. So we are training our staff. We are supporting our staff. We also know where they're going. And there's still organisations that'll say, oh, Mary's out on the road, but I'm not quite sure where she is. And it's like, well, that's a risk. And how do you know Mary's not dead in the gutter? And what time is she due back? I'm not quite sure. So other organisations do it really well, some not so great, but things to think about. Yeah.
There's a word there that all of this for me brings up, which is awareness. The process that you have as an organisation needs to promote awareness not only of your staff, but gaps in the organisation, what you're doing for those spaces. But the way I see it is you have to be aware as an individual before you walk into someone's to care for someone, what is happening for you, as well as what's happening for them.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, those environments change. They're dynamic. Things don't stay the same. And knowing that things could be different or, from 2 days ago. And sometimes you don't know, if you're going into someone's home, you don't know if they've got family members that have come to stay or have come to visit, and they might become a risk because, and we see this again in certain areas, the family might not be happy with their perception of what is happening with their loved one, and they might start to get quite aggressive, and yet they're not the person that is typically in the house. So, it's just, I guess, having a think about, well, as an organisation, what are your gaps? And not being scared of those gaps and going, well, if we can at least address them and then look at, well, what can we possibly do to address them? Not 100% foolproof. Any other questions? This was like this on speed, like it was really, really a short amount of time. As I said, this can, we can take a week to train this stuff up, but it's just a taster. If anyone's got any questions or anything, I think my details are on something. I've left a few business cards out the front. Happy for you to email, call, whatever, and have a chat if you have got questions.
Can we say a massive thank you to Tatjana?
Good one.
But before she introduced herself on the back, I told her to remind everyone of something she forgot to do. She also does supervision. So that's something that if any of your organizations are interested in, she does provide supervision. We've used her for a long time, so as you can see. So thank you for coming. I guess to sum up, I think it's very similar to what I seen at the trauma when we did the trauma talk. I think it's very important to stay curious, to learn, to consistently want to learn about the people you're caring for and the people in your care in terms of staff, how your organization's going. And I guess that's the only way really we can keep learning and shifting with the moving dynamic of the situation of the person we're supporting. So.
And the other thing is we do know that it ends up saving you time. If the more you get to know them up front, the more time you can save because you're not having to deal with the behaviors that are taking you away from doing what you're supposed to be doing.
So I know everyone's eager to get to the food because I am. But again, a massive thank you for everyone for coming. A thank you to Tatjana. And as Earl mentioned, next month we have a really cool event that's focused on cutting edge tech. I'll just give one sneak peek. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's a piece of technology that helps people with quadriplegia play golf. That's going to come and do a live demonstration, which would be pretty cool. And we have a special product launch on that day as well, which I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to say what it is yet. So that's fine. I won't. But again, massive thank you and please enjoy the food and everything. It will be at Strathfield Golf Club, the next one, but we'll be posting that out there as well. But yeah, all right. Thank you so much for coming and enjoy. Thank you so much.